White Magic. We left off talking about the 12 principles of synthesis, and we were talking about how important it is that, what the masters visualized when this book was written back in around the early 30s was that the future lights of the world would be gathered together promoting goodwill. And there's a group that was beginning at that time called the New Group of World Servers who connect on subtle levels, and eventually they would get together on physical levels. But there are people in the world that are sensitive to higher contact, that their thoughts and what they do in life is very important. They will participate with other people, their friends, their associates, their groups, and they will influence others for good to bring about the new age of peace. One person can't do it, but the group of New World Servers will be thousands of people scattered throughout the earth in different positions. And they may not even know they're one of these people, but they just know they want to do what's right and to help humanity and do their best to make the world a better place. That's pretty much in their consciousness. And these people that are more sensitive are in subtle contact with others that are like them. And he makes this important point that when two of these people will meet in person, they'll kind of have a knowing and recognizing each other. And I think most people in this group at one time or another, when you meet somebody on your spiritual wavelength, you just get a feeling about them. How about you, Eva? Have you felt that way before? That you meet somebody and you just feel that?
Many times, yes, many times.
You get a feeling about them? Yeah. How about you, Ed? Did you get feelings about people you meet?
I'm sorry, I just pressed the wrong button. Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I've always had a sensitivity to people. When I first meet them, I can almost know what my interaction would be with them. And, you know, the eyes are the window of the soul.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of average people, they get some sense on the emotional level, but not so much the spiritual. But the people that are interested on the spiritual path, when they meet somebody else that's on that path, they just get a feeling about them, and you get the feeling, hey, I'd like to know this person better. And that's part of it. But anyway, these people that are more sensitive, like I would include all the people here today, we have an opportunity to influence the world for good, and we do it with several different ways: with the power of our thoughts, with the power of our interaction with other people we meet. That can include people on Facebook, can include our families, include any groups you're associated with. And he says this is an important point in a project in changing the world. And I would guess we haven't made as much progress as was hoped for, because the world's still in a pretty unstable situation right now. There's possibilities of wars all over still, and a lot of division going on. But he also points out this, that oftentimes before the greatest surge in progress, you'll have a point of tension where there's tremendous conflict. So we must be at a point of tension right now, because all throughout the world, there's a lot of political conflict going on. And so this hopefully is bringing us to the point where we have to think about stuff. So when we sort out our thoughts, we can eventually come together. What he says, he makes an interesting point about this group, though. He says there aren't very many occultists among them. He says this is due to for one thing, there aren't very many people that, by occultists, he means people that are interested in the higher spiritual path. Okay, so he says part of this is their numbers, but he says also they have a tendency to be sectarian, exclusive, and self-righteous. In other words, a lot of the people that are out there on in the alternative spiritual groups have the same problem as the regular religious people, in the fact that they're sectarian, exclusive, and self-righteous. And he says most of the people that are in the new group of world servers are just kind of, he says, in all kinds of different fields that may not be spiritual. They may be educators, they may be scientists, they may be even politicians, he says, which is kind of hard to believe for a lot of us. But they can be everywhere. And say a person is a scientist, for instance, and he wants to discover a cure for cancer or whatever. Okay, so he's following his highest good, and he may wind up doing a lot more good than some spiritual teacher like myself or somebody else that's teaching out there or learning or studying or whatever. And so the most important thing that they look for is people that are following the highest path that is available for them, and with a sincere desire to help humanity. They're non-sectarian, non-exclusive, they're not self-righteous, they're humble, they're just trying to do their best to make the world a better place. And so he says that the people in alternative spiritual work have the same problem everybody else, and the fact that sometimes they may not be on the true path any more than maybe their friends that's doing something else, but he's maybe doing it right. And so this is an important point, and it's interesting how many of the experts in the world are not any better than the average person. For instance, a few years ago, they picked out the greatest experts in finance and the stock market, and they had them. They give them a certain amount of money and had them predict what stocks would do. And then they found this monkey, and they had the monkey pick stocks. And the monkey did better than the greatest experts that were available. The monkey stocks did better, which I thought was pretty amusing. But then we have people in the law, and people in the law misuse the law and don't seem to use it correctly as much as the average person would if he was in charge of the thing. And then the doctors tell us all kinds of things that wind up doing us more harm than good, like using radiation on cancer treatments. So it puts people through tremendous pain. Now, sometimes that can be a good thing, but many times they maybe extend life for 2 to 3 weeks and put the person through tremendous pain, and he'd been a lot better without it. And so we have, and a lot of doctors are against using nutrition. They think nutrition doesn't make any difference one way or another. And so a lot of the experts aren't really that great to listen to. And same thing with the ministers. Look at the ministers, the problems we have with sexual abuse, and how inspiring are uh, the lectures or the teachings you hear in the average church. You know, they put you to sleep pretty much. So there's a handful of good ones, like Janet and Marcus are going to one that they actually enjoy. But and they're not going through a sense of duty, they're going because they actually enjoy it. So that's the way it should be. So the experts in their various fields aren't always, oftentimes they are not any better than just you or I would be if we kind of look at it and analyze it and try to figure out the best way to go. And this is the same thing in the spiritual field. Not only the religious field, but the alternative spiritual field, he says, has this same problem. And so we have to, when we look at fellow travelers that are actually with a sincere heart, really trying to do their best, we're going to find them. You never know where you might find them. It may be, you may be going to a football game, sitting next to somebody, and he may not be involved in anything that you consider spiritual, but he may have an intent in his heart to really change the world for the better. And he may be one of the new group of world servers. You just never know for sure. So it's important that we keep our eyes open, not be judgmental, but always keep our eye open for a fellow traveler that may be one of these that DK talked about. Now he says here that these people have a symbol over their head. It's a golden triangle enclosed with an even armed cross with a diamond at the apex of the triangle. And he says regular psychics will not be able to see this. The only person that can see this is another member of the group. And he says, and even them won't see it unless it's some special occasion that there's some reason you need to recognize a fellow traveler, feel like maybe a little bit dense and you're not picking it up. And you look at him close, you may see over his head this triangle. And if you see it, then you know that he's somebody that you're supposed to be working with. But so that's an interesting thing. So if you've never seen it, well, but still get a sense that of other people, and that's still a good thing. Okay, he says the motto of the group is the glory of the one. A little bit like the Three Musketeers, one for all and all for one. I've always liked that. I've always felt that was a strong esoteric statement. All for one and one for all. That was a great thing. So last time we talked about the 12 principles of synthesis. And the 12 principles of synthesis are designed to bring the alternative spiritual people together, where there are 12 points that alternative spiritual people are supposed to agree on, and they can help bring us closer together. Then after the great disaster, the Twin Towers that we call 911, after that happened, I was very concerned about the differences of religion, that Muslims don't like Christian and Jews, and many Christians and Jews are terrified of Muslims. And after that great disaster, I thought, well, there needs to be some type of unifying factor, because the thing about the different religions of the world, even though different sects had each other, and we find that within religions themselves. Among Christians, there's actually thousands of smaller sects, and many of them see other Christians as part of the beast of Revelations or something like that. And so, and the same thing with Buddhists. There's different Buddhists that don't like other Buddhists, different Muslims who don't like other Muslims. And so there's all kinds of divisions among not only the different main religions, but within the different main religions of the world. All kinds of divisions. But what people are looking at is more of the divisions than what brings them together. There are certain tenets in all religions that are good and unifying. And so this is what I wrote out was the 16 Principles of Unification. So this is designed to make us aware of what unites us no matter what religion we are. The 12 Principles of Synthesis was designed for the people that are already thinking out of the box. This is for everybody, for the masses. The first principle of unification is, I believe there is goodwill and a desire for peace in the majority of people, groups, and religions, and accept the idea of a peaceful coexistence as an ideal for which to strive. I further realize that the majority of people wish to live in peace despite their differing beliefs. What do you think about that? Don't you think that whether you're a Christian, Islam, or Buddhist, couldn't just about any religion embrace that statement? Doesn't everybody have a desire for peace, ultimately? And we just don't know how to get there is a problem. Everybody has a different idea how to get there, but we all want to get there. So this is one unifying point that we could get behind if we're willing to. Second, I acknowledge that there exists a higher intelligence, typically thought of as God, but referred to by a variety of names. Okay, so all of us, no matter what religion, think of some type of higher intelligence that governs things. And now sometimes people say Buddhists are atheists, but they're not atheists at all. They just think of God in a different way than the regular Christian or Jew or whatever thinks of God. But they do recognize higher intelligence governing the universe. And okay, so that's an interesting point. 3, even though this being or intelligence is called by different names and descriptions, I acknowledge that this same God is over all mankind and that we are children of God, brothers and sisters. Essentially, humanity is one family. Now, what do you think on that? Annie, do you think most religions can accept that statement? That we're all just one family? Oh, she must have went away from her mic.
No, I'm here. I'm here. Yes, I think so, JJ. I think so.
Yeah. But, you know, you read these things over, you think, and you see what we have in common, and you wonder, well, why is there so much discord when we really have so much we can agree upon? Okay, the fourth point. I believe that the will of God would include the best possible outcome for all of humanity. The goal of peace on earth, goodwill to humankind, is a goal I embrace. Now, is there, can you think of any member of any religion you know of that wouldn't accept the goal of peace on earth, goodwill to humankind? Man and womankind, however we want to word that. Yeah. No, everybody wants that, but instead we concentrate on the differences. 5, I embrace the principle of love and seek to love my neighbor as I do myself. I seek to do unto others as I would have others do to me. I seek to serve both God and humanity. Now, maybe there's a handful of religious people that don't practice this good enough. They seek to, there's certain neighbors that they seek to love as themselves, and then there's others that they see as so different that they have a hard time loving them. But almost every religion will embrace this, in theory at least, that to love your neighbor as yourself. Even atheists think that's a great idea. You know, I've heard atheists talk about that as if, yeah, you know, you guys need to practice that more often. But so everybody agrees with this, but recognizing how important it is, the unification is extremely important. 6, I embrace the principle of light in that I see greater understanding. I realize that I have knowledge of some things, but do not know all things about either God or humankind, and therefore I seek to know more. I believe that I can progress in knowledge and understanding of spiritual principles. I seek to ever expand my learning. I am open to a fresh outlook when greater light and truth are revealed to me. So have you ever met a religious person that thinks that there's nowhere for him to go? Let's see, who can we pick on here? Well, let's pick on old Stacy over here. He's always got something to say. Yeah, have you ever known any religious person that thinks that there's nothing else for him to learn? Or do you think most people are open to at least learning something more about Jesus, if nothing else? What do you think, Stacy?
It's like Stacy just got a phone call.
Oh, did he? Okay, well, we'll ask you then, Rick. Get Stacy on it later. Oh, there's Stacy. Okay.
I'm sorry, JJ. What I missed whatever you said. I was on a phone call.
Okay, I'll get you next time. I'll ask Rick since he was listening. You ever met a religious person or any person at all that didn't feel like he had anything to learn, Rick?
No, I can't say that I have. Sometimes you meet people that think they know everything.
Yeah.
It's not too hard to prove them wrong.
Right. Yeah, basically we all realize is we got more to learn, even, and if you're a Christian or Islam or a Jew, at least they feel they got more to learn within their own religion and some things maybe to learn outside of it. So that's a unifying thing for us. We all feel there's more to learn, even though, like Rick says, some people think they know it all.
Well, it's funny that you should even mention it. The things you're just talking about are things that we were physically doing on Second Life last night. Myself and Eric, who's in Blue Triad, we were in a group of 7 last night, and we were experiencing more oneness than you would think a bunch of cartoon characters could. And we were talking about the very same things. So we have quite a nice little inner circle connected with this club called the Gathering Oak, you know, on a virtual reality world.
Okay. Okay, next question, we'll give Stacy some warning this time. We're going to ask you about this one, Stacy. So are you ready to listen? Okay, he's ready. Hopefully.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll try.
Okay. 7th principle of unification. I accept the principle of cause and effect and embrace the simple idea as taught in all spiritual movements that good and loving deeds and actions and thoughts will bring good results, while harmful actions will bring destructive results. I therefore seek to do good to all mankind, that good will return to me. Okay, what do you think about that? You think most people think can accept that idea?
I think the movement is going towards that because more of esoteric literature is coming out and understanding. The word karma is coming out. More people are understanding what it means, and they're understanding that cause and effect is actually what pertains to karma. And the few that are waking up to a big extent are understanding they're creating their karma. And they can create it and they can balance it. Karma plays few different things with it, but that cause and effect, they're understanding that more and more.
Yeah, and then that last sentence, I seek to do good, that good will return to me. I think most people in just about every religion kind of believes that, don't you think? They think
Yeah.
what goes around comes around. That's a common statement.
Well, yeah, I believe that's a common statement, and it's commonly understood among most religions. I don't know of any religion that isn't looking for a betterment, other than trying to kill somebody else for it. But yeah, they're all looking for the same thing.
Yeah, right. Okay, we'll go ahead with number 8 here. We'll go ahead with number 8. I accept the principle of freedom. I allow all people to worship, speak, and believe how, where, or what they may, so long as they comply with the just laws of the land. I do not support imposing my beliefs on others by force. Now, there's maybe a handful of religious people that believe in imposing their ideas by force, but most people don't. Most people are kind of live and let live. And if we could just allow people their own freedom. Any comments on this? What do you think? Do you think that's most people will accept that idea?
I think if you ask them, they will say they accept it and they support it. But sometimes, I mean, like politicians, they still do things that goes contrary to it, but they just don't see it that way. I mean, they're kind of blind sometimes.
Yeah, like I saw a disturbing survey the other day that 41% of college students think that speech they disagree with should be against the law if it hurts their feelings. 41%. So in other words, 41% think hate speech should not be allowed. So yeah, the First Amendment is good. Most people will support the First Amendment vocally, but then when it comes down to the details, they think, well, you know, that should be against the law. And the principle of freedom is an important one. Most people accept it in theory, but in practice, it's a little bit more difficult. But this is really a key point of unification, to allow other people their freedom of their beliefs, even though they're contrary to our own. This is a really key one. Okay, number 9. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, also, I found in my experience with being related, or being a past member of a church, they talk about allowing other people outside of the group to have freedom of choice and beliefs and et cetera. But when it comes within the group, then that's a different situation. If you're in the group, then those rules don't quite apply.
Right. You got free agent. Your free agency is freedom to accept or get thrown out instead of just being accepted. Okay, great. Okay, number 9, I accept the principle of communion. Through prayer, thought, or contemplation, I can gain a greater awareness of God's purpose, God's will, and God's love. Okay, so basically, almost every member of every religion believes in prayer, meditation, contemplation, getting closer to God, and having a greater communion from within. Who can argue with that? Yeah. Any comments on that one? I don't think so. Okay. We'll pick on Mindy to comment on this next one. Are you there, Mindy?
I am here.
Okay. Number 10. I believe that my existence will continue even after the death of the physical body. Therefore, I seek to live my mortal life in such a way that the afterlife of myself and others will be a happy experience. Boy, you know any religious people that wouldn't go along with that idea?
Not right offhand, I don't. I would think everybody'd believe in that.
Yeah, it's funny, this really good Mormon character that my wife knew at the time that I first met her. She met this Mormon guy that fell in love with her. She didn't fall in love with him, but he said if he was willing to throw away the celestial kingdom of God and take his chances if she would just have an affair with him. And I think he was married even at the time. And I thought, boy, that's pretty darn weird. So this guy, he must not really believe in the afterlife that much, because just throwing it all away, throwing an eternity away for just a small period of time. So people claim they believe in an eternal afterlife, but when you think of how long eternity is, I mean, if all you got to do to have eternal bliss for trillions of years is just say, hey, I accept Jesus. Boy, that's pretty, you'd think everybody'd be doing. Or if everybody thought just living the good life, it would certainly be worth it, you would think. But anyway, everyone, they all believe in some type of afterlife. And whether reincarnation or just living with Jesus, singing songs or whatever, they believe in that, and they believe it's contingent on what we do here. Okay, number 11. We'll pick on Kenny this time. Kenny, are you listening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I believe in the principle of sharing to assist those less fortunate than myself. I support the elimination of poverty, disease, and ignorance from the human condition, that all may live abundantly. I realize that this must be accomplished through working of the free will of humanity, not through force, and that sharing includes more than the material side. Yeah, you think most people go along with that idea?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I see a lot
In theory anyway, but we need to do it more in practice, don't we?
Yeah, where I live now, I've lived here several years now, and I live in the middle. I'm right in the midst. I'm living with the poverty here, and it was really hard for me at first, and always wondering how I could make a difference.
Is there a lot more percentage of poor people there than in the United States?
Oh yeah, many more, many more. The people living all around me right here, they don't even. I think they have electricity, but I think they're still cooking with fire with it. They use wood.
Really?
They have little stoves, and yeah, and so.
How about water? Is there people that even have difficulty getting clean water?
Well, the thing is the tap water here is not really fit to drink, yet some people still have to. So yeah.
Do you filter your water yourself, or what do you drink?
Well, actually, they have water purification stores everywhere, and the price is really reasonable. So many people can afford it, but many people cannot too.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I bet you the principle of sharing really affects you then,
Yes.
where you're living kind of in a third world situation there. Yeah.
Yes, I think about it every day. Yeah.
Kind of tugs at your heart probably if you're going down the street and seeing people begging for food and stuff, huh?
Yeah, it really hurts sometimes. Sometimes it's really hard just to go to the grocery store, you know, and see so many people that are so poor and hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad enough here where I live, and we're in one of the more prosperous cities, yet still you go to the grocery stores, you see people with signs out and wanting help. It tugs at your heart. What's frustrating is there's plenty of food and goods in the world to take care of everybody if we were able to all endorse the principle of sharing. And it's kind of unfortunate what they say 1% of, well, a couple hundred families on the earth control a large portion of the assets of the earth. I think, what, 30, 40% or something like that. It's kind of frustrating. But that yet we can't just go in and force a redistribution. If we do that, then it creates more problems than it solves. It has to be done through teaching. And it's starting to take hold. There's quite a number of billionaires that say they're not going to leave their money to their kids, but they're going to leave it to benevolent causes. So we have more of this beginning to happen. So slowly we're getting redistribution through free will. Okay, number 12. We'll pick on Adam. I see he just showed up. Are you there, Adam?
Just barely got here.
Oh, okay. We're talking about the principles of unification and how no matter what religion a person is, he should be able to accept these. Number 12, I believe that true spiritual principles and facts are in harmony with proven science, as is all truth, no matter where it is discovered. In all situations, I seek to know the truth rather than settle for that which is false. Okay, now many people see a conflict between science and religion, but when something's proven to be an actual fact, doesn't both science and religion have to accept it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's evidence that shows up that they argue about, but once it's proven to be fact, once a world was proven to be round, even the religions begin to accept it. But what's really weird about that is we have the flat earth people showing up in a lot bigger numbers now on the internet. And among the young people, a survey a while back showed that I think close to 25% of young people or consider that the earth may actually be flat. Which is kind of weird when you think about it. But once things are settled as fact, we have to accept those things as fact if we're going to proceed toward unification. And no matter what religion a person is, most people will accept settled fact once it's completely settled. Now the trouble is, a lot of people say this is settled fact when it isn't, you know, and a lot of people teach things as fact that haven't really been proven. But what will unify us is things that are actually proven. For instance, if something actually happened, then it happened. If somebody actually said something, then he said it. Now, with politicians, what they'll do is if somebody says something they don't like, they'll repeat it in their own words, saying so-and-so said this, but then they'll distort it and say what the guy didn't really say, to paint him in the worst possible way. So, but if there's a recording and we can establish this is what he actually said, then we have to accept it pretty much. The 13th principle. I accept, oh, let's pick on somebody else here. Deanie, we haven't heard from you. Are you there? I'll unmute you here. Oh, she's not there. Well, let's pick on somebody else. Melva, are you there? Well, must have had to go get a cup of coffee. Oh, there's Deanie coming back. Deanie, are you there?
I'm here. I didn't hear though. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I want you to comment on principle 13. Let me read it to you. I accept the principle of harmlessness, and in this spirit, I do not support any first aggression toward any nation, group, or individual. If there is no first aggression, then there will not be a second. Can you think of any religious person you know that would argue with that?
Not really. Not if
Yeah.
they're really religious.
Yeah, but some people don't follow it, but they agree with it in theory, don't they? If we could just follow what we agree with in theory, we'd all be united and the world would be a good place to live tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Jill, let's pick on you next. Number 14, I support the principle of harmonious and good relationships and seek to be an ambassador of goodwill with my family, friends, groups, and nations, and all that may benefit from contact with me. I embrace kindness in all my contacts. Okay, do you know of anybody in any religion that is against the idea of harmonious relationships?
No, I don't. As stated for some of the other principles, I think that there are some people who might believe in it in theory, but don't practice it 100% of the time in their everyday lives. But in theory, I think they do try to embrace that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and in theory they all embrace it, yet in practice they may do some damage to their neighbor's car because they don't like what he believes. But in theory they will. You can't find anybody that says, yeah, I believe in bad relationships, you know.
Right. No,
but in practice, that's what they seem to practice sometimes. But in theory, they will support it.
And if they happen to be a practicing Christian, they can always go to church and atone for their sins the next week.
Yeah, right. Poison the neighbor's dog because he's creating too much problem for him, but then go repent.
Right.
Okay, 15. Let's see, who will we pick on next? Thomas, are you there? Am I putting everybody to sleep today, or what's going on?
Yeah.
Right there, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to read the 15th principle. I want you to comment. I support the principle of honesty and seek to tell the truth consistently. What do you think? You think religious people can all agree on that?
I think so, but to be honest all the time, it's going to be quite difficult because a lot of religion people don't practice that.
Yeah, like Jimmy Swaggart had that affair with the prostitutes, but he just wasn't very honest about it till he was caught. And these priests having molesting little boys, they would admit that until they're caught. So sometimes honesty is pretty difficult, especially when you actually do something wrong. That's when honesty is really tough. When you do something you're not supposed to do. Even just small things. Sometimes my wife will ask me, "Did you do this?" And I don't really want to tell her, but because I believe in the principle, I sometimes get myself in trouble by being too honest. But honesty is something endorsed by all religions. Say they believe in it, but practicing it again is the hard part. How about you in your life, Thomas? Do you have a hard time practicing it sometimes yourself? Well, I mean, I know everybody does one time or another. Are you there?
Yeah, there have been times in the past where it was hard for me to be honest and everything, but I'm trying to be more honest nowadays, but it's real hard sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when, if you're honest, it hurts a person's feelings. That's kind of tough for a lot of people. Or if that makes them mad or something like that. But what we have to combine with honesty is tactfulness. If somebody comes and says, "Do you think I'm overweight?" and you say, "Yeah, you're fat as a hog," well, then that's not going to go over very well. But if you say, "Well, you know, you're a few pounds overweight, but you still look great, you know, so look fine to me anyway." So there's ways to say it where you can be honest and not do as little damage as possible. Okay,
I think openness should always go hand in hand with being honest too. Like if you're not being open, that's sort of like being dishonest. So you have to kind of balance.
Right. Be as honest as you can. Now, there are some things that you might want to keep private, and that's just fine if you want to.
Absolutely.
If Rick wants to keep private some of the really crazy stuff he does, it's just fine. Now, Rick's a funny guy, though. He doesn't mind us knowing about something.
I've been pretty darn open about my funny things.
Yeah, Rick is about as open a guy as you can find. But there's other people like their privacy, and that's just fine. And I don't think even the masters encroach on our privacy, even though they can read our minds when they want to.
I had an incident this week, a test. I took my granddaughter to Walmart and it was jam-packed. I was exhausted. She was going picking things up for me and everything, and it was absolutely horrible. Another lady even let us go ahead. She said, "You go ahead." So when we got to I was pushing the stuff to the car and I looked down and there was a toothbrush, and I thought that we didn't put it on the counter, and I thought, am I going to go back in there?
Yeah, sometimes you think it's not hardly worth it, huh?
So I finally did. I mentioned it to my granddaughter. I said, "You know, honey, I think we didn't put that on the counter." And she said, "Oh, we did, Granny. It was there. It just slipped out of the bag," and I was so relieved.
Yeah.
It was a second there I was considering not.
Yeah. Okay, principle number 16. This is the last one. I accept the fact that beneficial teachers, innovators, and servants of humanity have appeared in times past for the benefit of all, and realize that others will yet manifest. I seek to prepare my mind and heart to accept the good, the beautiful, and the true when they present themselves. So every religion thinks that great teachers will come from the Christ on down to prophets, or just great teachers, or maybe just teachers just a little above ourselves will show up. And we should be open to the possibility that there will be others that will show up that will be able to take us higher than we can, than we have gone before. And I think most religions pretty much accept that idea and are looking forward to greater light and truth. But when it comes, they usually wind up fighting against it, unfortunately. But in theory, this is another one. In theory, they endorse. In practice, it's pretty hard to accept new ideas when they come if they conflict with people's mindset and dogmas. Yeah, have you ever thought about that, Annie, that, let's pick on Annie here again. What do you think when Christ comes again? How many people do you think that say they really love Christ will actually reject him when he opens his mouth and when he shows up?
Well, I'm afraid a lot of people won't recognize him actually, because, well, just look at your teachings and the spiritual world out there, and how many people will just close down if you say something that's not in the Bailey books or Blavatsky book or something. People are pretty close-minded. I think that same thing will happen to Christ when he comes back.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I even ask myself sometimes is, when he comes, am I prepared to accept everything? You know, and so even if we think we're pretty enlightened and everything, we might there might be some things that are taught that are hard for all of us to accept. So we need to be open-minded. But the great part about truth is that the things that Christ will teach will take us to a higher level and bring us more peace, harmony, and happiness in the end. And having faith in that which is confirmed by the soul. Because when he does come, or when any great teacher comes, his teachings will be confirmed by our own souls. And so this is the important thing, is always be in touch with your own soul, because any teacher of light will speak to your own soul and it will be able to confirm. So if you're in harmony with your soul, you will be in harmony with greater light and truth that will manifest in the future. Okay, that's covers that for now. That's I felt that was important to write, because it also goes along with what DK teaches about unification and bringing oneness and goodwill to all the spiritual people of the planet. And that's where he envisions the direction of us going. And I think all of us will admit we're not going there fast enough, but we are stumbling along, and sooner or later we're going to get there. Okay, any comments or questions before we wrap it up?
Many of these things are what DK calls below the level of consciousness, or below the level of consideration, because at this point we're expected to have progress far beyond these things.
Yeah, I wrote this for general humanity, whereas the 12 principles of synthesis were written for kind of seekers like ourselves. This is something that would be that we've actually tried to promote in the past to for general humanity to endorse, but haven't got out there that much yet. But if it would be really great if these principles could be presented to just the general average people out there, to make them realize that, hey, you know, I have more in common with different religions than I thought. You know, all the different religions really have a lot of things that they do have in common. And when people realize that, then they'll eventually be more open to what DK teaches as the one uniting world religion that is to come. And there'll still be religions in name only, but he says there will be certain principles that will manifest among humanity to draw people together in oneness. So, for instance, these are kind of symbolic of that. These are things that all the religions can endorse. He says there will be certain things recognized by all the religious people of the world that they have in common. And this will slowly start to bring people together as if the world is one religion eventually. So how long that will take, I don't know, but even when it happens, people will have their various churches to go to, but they will recognize, even though they go to different churches, they'll recognize they're part of a greater spiritual essence, together, united.
There already
Okay.
is there is sort of a pre-sample of the one world religion, because nowadays everybody says, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So, no.
Yeah, that's becoming pretty popular, and that's kind of the direction DK was talking about. That a lot of people, you hear that more and more. I'm not religious, but I'm on a spiritual path. And more and more people will start endorsing that idea. Yeah, Janet?
Talking about all the different religions, that I think that's one thing that I love about our church, is because we don't believe that one true church is there. So Judaism, Mormonism, Buddhist, what are some of the others? There's
Islam.
the teachings of all of them. We believe that all of them have something right and something to offer. So I think that's what I love about our church, is because it's not your typical type of just Christian non-denominational church. It's like, hey, we're open-minded to everything. I guess that's why I'm here too now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Well, we're glad you're here, and more and more people will be like, you're still going to a church, but you're exploring other things, and you see unification that's out there. And this is what DK said will eventually happen. And so even though people may continue to go to their churches, they will see a spiritual essence drawing humanity together on things that everybody agrees upon. Loving your neighbor, being generous, helping the poor, helping the less fortunate. Basic principles will draw us together eventually. And this is an important key. Okay, any other comments before we sign off?
In Yogananda's group, they say they believe in the saints and sages of all religions.
Yeah. And that's a good to do, even though a lot of Christians see Catholicism as an evil religion. Not as bad as they used to. When I was young, the Catholics were often seen as antichrist almost, but you look at their history, they got some saints in their history that are really quite phenomenal people. And so that's the way in all religions. All religions have some really good things to study in them. And
well, consider the movement that's started by the current Pope. A lot of openness, and a lot of the old things are being changed. I've never been a Catholic, but I honor what he's doing.
Yeah, he's certainly changing things, all right. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, I'm glad he's relaxing, like divorce and stuff like that. And birth control, and some of the things the Catholics really need to modernize a little bit. So he's some good things happening there. Okay, any other questions, comments? Well, we'll meet again next Sunday at 10 a.m. this time, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week, and want everybody to have a good week, and think about think about our meditation we did and try to visualize staying in contact and seeing the life flowing through the group as a whole as the week goes by till we meet again. See.